Good morning, chat, for this beautiful day of cricket. What awaits us in few hours' time, couple of hours to be precise, and it's a beautiful day, and we all are excited. And as you all woke up this morning, you all might have had jitters to start off the day with. You know, it's a big day. It's that kind of a feeling which you had possibly on April 2nd or June 26, 1983, if you were born then. So that's what I'm gonna say. It's a beautiful feeling to wake up to this feeling, but at the same time, it's very nervous kind of a morning as well
Yeah.
because you don't know what to anticipate at the end of the day. Welcome, Jen, on the show. How are you feeling this morning?
I think I would say butterflies because you know that you're at the verge of making World Cup history, being the second team ever to cross the three World Cup mark. India could do it today, but then standing right in front of us is the giant, is a World Cup giant, 5 World Cups. They've dominated the World Cup, ODI World Cup, not just ODI World Cup, but any ICC tournament forever. Like ever since the inception of cricket,
Yeah,
they have been a force to be reckoned with, and
yeah.
today is going to be no different. But that's where I think a lot of factors will come into play, such as India's excellent form. And I think if you really look at this World Cup, the two most informed teams have ended up in the finals, and that's why it's going to be such a mouth-watering clash.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, as we spoke yesterday night as well, for
Yeah.
India, there was only going to be two big challenges in the final. One is a very strong white ball English team, and then an Australian team who are masters in the final, right? And India have got the latter, and it's no easy task to go out there and push over an Australian team. You have to be at your absolute best to go on to defeat an Australian team, and that's been the case, right? You often defeat Australia and you go on to win the World Cup. That's been the case in almost
Yes.
every World Cup if you look in the last few years. You defeat Australia, you win the World Cup. From 96 onwards, that's been the trend. If you defeat Australia, you win the World Cup. There's no, in that particular period, I know Australia won three times as well. But whichever team has gone to defeat Australia in a knockout, but they've gone on to win the World Cup. But
Yeah.
having said that, Jaren, what will make India to stand out today? I mean, what is going to be some reason? Let's talk about that, right? Because you have been here, you have reached this position at this point. What is really going to make the two teams stand out, especially India?
I think if you have to look at India, aside from the fact that they're playing at home and there are these are familiar conditions, but then I think that advantage has really been diluted because of IPL. So if you really have to say what sets India apart, it has to be the fact that everyone in this team has had a moment in the World Cup where they've stepped up, and there's not been one player that you would say hasn't really stood up to the occasion. They've and it's I mean I know people are saying that India's not been challenged yet, but I think there have been challenges on the way. We were in trouble against this very team when we had lost 3 wickets quite early. If you remember against England as well, we had a very shaky start. There was a period in between in the semi-finals where we felt like the match is slipping away from India, but somehow and some way India has always found ways to make sure that they don't let go of the momentum, and they've seized early momentum as well. So I think that's the one factor that you have to say, that India has been a team which is always in this World Cup sees that early momentum, and the opposition has been put under pressure. And even if they don't get that early momentum, it's not long before India takes control of the match. And if that can happen today, if that pattern repeats today, then you definitely know that India is on course for their third.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's just talk about our team management to start off with. I think we have to talk about Rahul Dravid, Rohit
Yeah.
Sharma. You reckon role clarity has been one factor which has really made this team management to stand out? If you look, every batter has been defined with their roles. Let it be Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, or for the matter with Shreyas Iyer. They know that these guys have got two gears, and especially certain batters to play in a certain role clarity, which you did not see in any of these tournaments. You always had an assessment as the game went on. Now you have a pre-planned role clarity, which is so important for players. We talk about it, role clarity being such an important factor in cricket, and I think Rahul Dravid has really worked on. Rahul Dravid and Rohit Sharma both have really worked on the role clarity aspect of things. They made sure every player is cleared and was given a well-defined role as to what they have to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys remember, the start of Rahul Dravid's coaching was a very tumultuous period for Indian cricket. Where we wouldn't really say Indian cricket was not doing well, but it was not doing up to the standards of what we expected. But you have to say that that has really changed, or maybe that the amount of changes that we saw has really seized as the World Cup has come around, and the closer and closer we got to the World Cup, the more and more you saw that role clarity come in. And now, if you pick any player in the squad, and by that I mean any player, even the ones who haven't played a World Cup match yet, you would say that if they come into this team, you know what kind of role they're going to play. And I think that's very important. The communication, the best of the teams, it's not always necessary that the best of the teams are the best of the players, right? It's those players who assimilate together and make a team who are able to cover all the roles required, who are able to, prepare for all the possible scenarios that can happen in a big match like this. And when you have that role clarity, that's the first thing that you get. It's much more simpler. Each player has to work on his basics that comes along with his role, and that also makes sure there's no overlapping, right? There's no confusion between two players and what they have to do, and that's been clear. Like we spoke about how, I think the best example, for instance, is Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. Now Rohit Sharma has realized that he has that power game, that aggressive batting inherent in him, that he can go after the bowling, and Virat has,
Yeah.
kind of been a little bit more laid back. He's been the backbone of the team, and now it's working brilliantly, because there was a time, if you remember, where both Rohit and Virat playing an anchor's role was hurting the team. But now all of a sudden, Rohit being this aggressive, you know, an aggressor who's really pushing the narrative, really helped the Indian team ease out in the middle overs and in the death overs, and prepare a platform. I think another example could be Siraj and Shami as well. Now that we know Shami is a second change bowler, the fact that he's able to come in and make that bring back that momentum that can be lost once the ball is getting a little older, just shows that this team is just gelled together really well. And I think that comes down to, as you rightly mentioned, the role clarity that all these players have.
I mean, you mentioned beautifully about Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli complementing each other. I think we have to talk about it a little bit more. I mean, it's a campaign which you'll remember for what Rohit Sharma and Virat has done, right?
Yeah.
On one end of things, people talk about Virat not playing as like Rohit Sharma, but do you want a Virat to play like what Rohit Sharma does as well? I mean, Rohit Sharma is able to do that because understanding that Virat is there, and Virat is able to do that because what Rohit Sharma has done, and that's something which people need to realize, and that's what really has glued this team together, and it's working perfectly for Team India. You don't need a Virat Kohli to play like what a Rohit Sharma does, because that's not what the demands of the team are. I mean, I think a video has been circulating across the internet over the last couple of days. Is the video of Virat Kohli asking the dressing room through every course of his innings, is he playing all right? First he asked, it was during the semi-final. First he asked during his 20s, am I playing all right? In his 40s, am I playing all right? In his 60s, am I playing all right? In his 80s, am I playing all right? And there's always a signal from the dressing room, yes, you're going all right. And if you want to change the gears, yeah, we'll let you know. I think that's a beautiful way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what the team is asking him to do, and he's reciprocating to that.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised, when those Virat being selfish came. I mean, the fact that people saw the Virat as being selfish, because if people know Virat Kohli, he's an ultimate team player, and he's always, I think, every time, right? Even when he was a youngster and he was a mercurial lad, it was one thing that Virat did was always adhere to what the team wanted him to do. So very much shocked and surprised. And I think that's also one good thing, right? That we should probably mention. This has been a one team, Abel, that has not been bogged down by what the social media is saying, what media is saying, what a bunch of so-called pundits are saying online. Who have their own agendas, who have their own hatred, and who are a bit salty. They don't listen to any of these lads. And why should they? It's all working. It's all coming to a head. Every plan that they have had has just worked out. And I think people calling Virat Kohli selfish is just absolutely absurd, because you need, and as I spoke about it yesterday as well, right? If you see, the teams that have done well in this World Cup have had one anchor. And if you don't have an anchor, you've seen how teams have struggled there as well. So you need to have an anchor player. I mean, a very good example for that is West Indies able. They've not had an anchor player for a while now in one day format. I think the
Yeah.
player that they've had is Shea Hope, but look at how far they've fallen for that reason. So I think you would have to say that in many ways you need at least one anchor player, and Virat has done that role really well. So I'm really shocked and surprised that people are pushing that narrative, and it's obviously an agenda,
I mean,
fueled narrative.
anchor also doesn't mean like you accumulate a lot of dot balls and you play
Absolutely.
percentage and conservative cricket. That is also going to really have negative impact on the team. But that's not exactly what Virat has done, right? Virat has
Yeah.
made sure we don't accumulate dot balls. He's been running the game Like he's rotating the strike, he's pushing the doubles, the singles, and hitting the odd boundary. And his strike rate is close to 100 almost every time. I mean, if you look,
Yeah,
if you look at this World Cup, his strike rate shows 90, but if you take the Australian innings away, his strike rate jumps up to close to 99. So that's the difference
yeah,
of what we're talking about, right? Because of that Australian innings was so vital, and that innings was what really got India over the line as well. So
yeah.
that's what you need to look at in context. But ultimately, stats tell you a story, but it's about how you break down the stats as well and how is he really scoring that. And 711 run season, I think Rohit Sharma equally. I mean, to score close to 600 runs in a season by just
And the
playing
striker that is
10,
playing.
yeah, and the strike rate at which he's playing. I mean, that's incredible. We spoke about
Uh,
Sehwag in 2011, but this is as double effective as Sehwag what he did in 2011, isn't it? Because Sehwag had a 397 kind of a season there. That
yeah, I mean,
also
you
because
have
he
to say
scored
that.
175 in the first match.
Yeah, and also if you have to say Sehwag, I mean, there's nothing against the legend. He played in a different era of cricket, right? 2011 ODI cricket was so much more different. I mean, I won't expect, in the kind of conditions that India had in Wankhede, I don't think that the target Sri Lanka had set in 2011 would be any challenge in this era. But what Sehwag was doing was revolutionary for that era in 2011. But you have to say that a lot more is expected from an opener. I think back then, if you could bat at 120 strike rate, that would have been out of this world. It would have been extraordinary, something unseen. So, and now Rohit Sharma is batting at, I think, what, T20 rates. Teams would love to have him play like that in T20 matches. So for him to take that kind of an aggression, he has a lot more workload, I would say, than Virendra Sehwag did in that era. And this is me just not comparing eras, but me saying how much more difficult opening has become in one-day cricket now. And for him to do that and still be one of the highest run getters in this World Cup, in fact, the second highest run getter in this match, if you look at all the other players, that just tells you a story. He's got an average of 55, by the way, in this World Cup. And batting at 124, an average of 55 in a one day match, it's not easy at all. And we've seen how the new ball has, been a factor this World Cup. But the only reason why it has not been a factor for India is Rohit Sharma.
I agree. I agree with you because I think Rohit Sharma has really nullified the pressure
Yeah.
which could have been put on in Team India on multiple occasions, and he's done it. I think only one match he did not perform. That was the first match. Other than that,
Yeah.
every match he's contributed in some way or the other, and it's been so important for us as a captain. He's really set the tone and he's walked the talk. Right? It's just not. Talking is one thing, but it's so important to
Yeah.
walk the talk as well. I mean, we are going to play aggressively, but are you going to play aggressively in important occasions? And that's exactly what it did in the New Zealand game in the semi-final. I mean, regardless of what is the talk about, okay, can India actually transcend this into the semi-final or not? He went on to set the tone, saying that we are going to play the exact cricket like what we did in the group stage in the semi-final as well. We're not going to change a single bit of it, and that's exactly the reason why India did go on to win the match, and did go on to win the match by that margin, like what you saw. So we'll take some questions. Since few players has already played in the final in previous ICC tournaments, they will guide rest of the players to calm down and how to play in final under tremendous pressure. I agree with you on that. I think it's so important also to be baggage free in these kind of finals. You're playing it for the
Mm.
first time. It's also going to be so important. I think Shubman Gill, or for the matter, Shreyas Iyer, these lads have got something about them. I mean, they are going to play a lot of baggage free cricket, and I think that's going to really help India. Yeah, Priyanka says shaking, throwing up, nervous. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are nervous. Nation holds his
Yeah,
breath as India
nervous.
play the ultimate game, obviously. And a couple also say Australia will is a team which will fight till the last ball, till the last bet to win for India. India but make them true champions. So yeah, obviously you'll have to defeat Australia in a margin to be the true champions. And Australia has always been the benchmark in cricket. If you look, 40
Yeah.
finals is what they have played. For 40 World Cups, they have played 26 finals in women and men cricket in combination to that. So
Yeah.
that's a crazy stat to have. They're the benchmark in cricket. Um, to toss isn't going to be a factor in my opinion, like semi-final. Yeah, I agree with you on this because I think a captain wouldn't mind losing the toss as we spoke yesterday because
Yeah.
two reasons. Batting under lights and Ahmedabad has been so good. I mean, there's nothing to indicate that this is the Ahmedabad which we spoke about in the IPL where the ball tends to move around quite a bit. I think it's slightly opposite to what happens in Mumbai. In Ahmedabad, the ball tends to move around at 7 or 8 around that time, 7:38. But by that time, it's already a 15 over ball, or it's already the ball is already crossed that stage, a power play is off, the shine is gone. So you don't get a lot more lateral movement of the surface if at all the moisture sets in, like what you saw in the IPL with the new ball. But Mumbai, it was that 1 hour period from 6:30 to 7:30 where the ball was moving quite a lot, which you don't see in the IPL. So I think it's just two opposites of what's happening in IPL to with Ahmedabad and with Mumbai. So in
Yeah.
Ahmedabad, you still can back yourself to chase because it looks like a very good chasing ground, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you remember that Australia versus England match as well, right? It just looked like England are going to just cruise through in at the 25th over mark, and then it took some really good bowling from Australia to pull things back. So I think you're right about that. Ahmedabad is a good pitch to bat on second, and I think you also have to add in the factor that there is going to be a bit of dew today. That's for sure. At least if there isn't a dew, you would be really surprised. You know
Now
that
tell me,
dew
like in a
hasn't come
World Cup
down.
final, are you more nervous of setting a target or are you more nervous chasing a target?
That's what I said, right, yesterday as well. I think it's a lot more relieving if you lose the toss because maybe sometimes it is not a bad thing to end up losing the toss because these kind of
Yeah,
decisions
because at
on
least
a
in
game like
Wankhede,
this.
I knew we had to win the toss. We had to win the toss.
Absolutely,
But
yeah,
here,
yeah,
I'm like, it's okay to lose the toss. It's fine. Whatever you give us, we're ready to do it. I mean, I think we have got it in us to chase and also to defend a target. So you give us what you want, we can do
precisely.
it.
And sometimes when you win the toss as well, Abel, what happens is you feel like you deserve to seize the early momentum. And in sport, you don't deserve anything until you put in the work for it. And obviously, tossing a coin in the air is indicating of nothing. But there's always a sense of okay, fine, we won the toss, which means we are at an advantage. But I think that sometimes as cricket fans, we need to understand that sometimes winning the toss doesn't really mean a lot because if it did, it would be a lot more it wouldn't be as easy as just a toss of a coin if it gave that clear an advantage winning the toss. That would have changed by the end of probably 200 years of cricket. I mean, what I think 1700s were when the rules were written for cricket, so things would have changed a lot by now. But because toss is not such a big factor, or at least in most conditions toss is not a big factor, is the reason why it's just a flip of a coin. So having said that, though,
Yeah,
you would have to
I mean,
say,
I just
in
love
many
this
ways,
comment, Jaren, to just take it up. Rohit Sharma has never lost a white ball final, and especially against a yellow team. He's never lost a white ball final. Just
but that's what we said about. I mean, I'm not being salty because the yellow team is my team, but we said the same things about WTC final. That Rohit Sharma has never lost a final, and then
No,
he
I
ended up
think
losing.
a white ball final again. He proved it in Asia Cup as well.
Yeah,
His
true,
record is
true
quite
that, true that.
serious in a white ball final. I mean,
Yeah,
I still have my question marks on Rohit Sharma, the red ball captain. I think it's very similar to what Dhoni has been. See, these both are
yeah.
tactically very good. I don't think that really transcends to Test cricket for that matter. We'll
No, I
see. I
think
mean, we don't want to
yeah.
talk
Even
about it
it's
right
also
now.
if you look at Rohit and MS, right? They are really good at managing their resources. But in Test cricket, it's not about managing your resources, right? It's about utilizing your resources as aggressively as possible, and that's why someone like Virat Kohli or Saurabh Ganguly were really good at.
Yeah,
Dhoni and Rohit are a lot more, astute and shrewd with their resources, so they will make life difficult for you and ask you to do something extraordinary, and that's the reason why white ball format they are such good captains in white ball format.
absolutely. I think we'll have to give credit to where it's due for Rohit Sharma. Rohit Sharma, the white ball captain, has been imperious. I mean,
Yeah,
if he wins today, he goes into a very
it's a legacy.
high
Yeah,
regard. To be very honest, I mean, you can regard him as India's greatest, one of the India's greatest. Definitely, to get the greatest tag, it's not easy in India because already another man has set the benchmark. So it's not going to be easy for sure, but he can be
I
in that
mean, Rohit can
prestigious
still
top.
reach there. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
can say there's a Champions Trophy coming up. There is a T20 World Cup coming as well.
yeah.
Still
I mean, you
possible.
can reset. It is possible.
Yeah,
There is no. He can end up because already gotten 5 IPL titles, and it's as you say, Rohit Sharma was always a deserving one to get the white ball captaincy, and he got it. I mean, it
yeah,
deserved. But now it's about performance. If he gets today, he'll be remembered in the folklore of legends. 40
yeah.
years down the line, like we call Kapil Dev of 83, we're going to remember Rohit Sharma of 23. So that's what we're going to remember Rohit Sharma for. And I think it's going to be a beautiful moment for Indian cricket, not just this World Cup will be remembered forever. I mean, not just Rohit
Absolutely.
Sharma. You're going to talk about, and Rohit Sharma's batting will go in the historic folklore as one of the best knocks by captains leading a team. And there are a lot of things. If you look, a lot of captains haven't done really well in World Cups over the years. But here is an opportunity for this guy to really do well. Imran Khan, you remember. Dhoni in final, you remember. but
Yeah.
it's not been like a captain dominant World Cup. Kapil Dev
I think
obviously was
Ricky Ponting
83,
is well in 2003. I know it's not a good day to bring this up, but Ricky Ponting's 140 against India in
158,
2003.
right? That's what he scored. 140 or
Yeah, I mean that
150.
was
Yeah,
140, no?
140. Yeah. जो
Yeah,
spring
and
था, bat में spring था वो वाला.
I mean, there's an interesting story behind it. So apparently, this was started. There was a parody newspaper article which was sent out in the public saying that Ricky Ponting had a spring, and people assumed that the newspaper was a realistic newspaper reporting it. I think I had a Twitter screenshot on this as well. It was the most absurd, I think it was misinformation before misinformation became a thing. And back in
Yeah.
2003, you didn't have the internet, but it was one of those things. I mean, bat में spring I mean, I think if you've studied science, I've not studied science beyond
Yeah.
10th. But if you studied science, you know that's never gonna work. That's not an
Yeah.
instrument that can work. Maybe if he was bringing an aluminium bat, yeah, but no, not
I
spring
mean,
in the
it's
bat.
not gonna work, man. I mean, he was just so good on that day, and that's one of the reasons why you don't want to bat, you don't want to ball first against Australia, right? You don't want those kind of memories coming back again and again. But yeah, to be very honest, let's be clear on this. What India has done in this World Cup, I know if they don't go on to win this, also you'll remember this for a long time. But it's obviously going to
Yeah,
be hard for you to come out of the fact that you did not win this World Cup, because this is a World Cup for you to win. Like in 2003,
yeah,
a lot of people said if India goes on to defeat Australia, that's a big deal. Because it was the World Cup for Australia to lose. And it was Australia's to win, obviously, because we all knew at the time. I mean, it was only something which could be out of the world to defeat that Australian team.
yeah.
I'm going to be I'm going to talk in a very similar lane. It's going to take something really out of the world to defeat this Indian team. And India has to
Hmm.
play really poorly. And very similar thing which happened in 2007 as well, when Sri Lanka was up against Australia. It
Yeah,
was going to require something really out of their skin to defeat the Australian team. And they were so dominant even there. I
yeah,
think that is where it comes down to this very moment. It comes down to the very fact that Australia will have to play really good cricket, and they have so many gaping holes in the team, which is not like
hmm,
what India has. You never talk about an Australian team and go, "Wow, their middle order is pretty brittle. They have high chances of getting collapsed.
yeah.
Their bowling attack is revolving around one guy, and other two bowlers are not in form." Now, how often have you spoken this about an Australian team?
I think we haven't spoken about an Australian team like that since I think that has been the case since 2015 World Cup. After the 2015 World Cup, not since. 2019, you would say I think was a very similar situation. There were a lot of comparisons where people said that 2019 team this was the worst team that has come out of Australia. If you remember, that was a conversation people were having after those two losses back to back. And look at where this team is reached, and that's the legacy that we're talking about, right? People call this the worst Australian team at the start of the World Cup, and they are in the final. So, but I think this team is a lot better than the 2019 one that showed up, because the 2019 one had a lot more holes. And I think that was the first time they lost in the semi-final in the World Cup history. They never lost in the semi-final. England were the first team to beat them there. So, interestingly enough, you'd have to say that this team, at the end of the day, what this team has done, Abel, is they know they have glaring issues. I mean, Pat Cummins did go out and say that this has not been a perfect World Cup for them. But what they also know is that at the end of the day, it's about making sure that your weaknesses are not augmented. It's about mitigating your weaknesses and really working on what is your strength. And that's been a thing that this Australian team has done. I mean, we're talking about India's streak. You have to also talk about Australia's streak. Australia has not lost in the last 8 matches. So they are
Yeah.
also on a hot streak, and it's not going to be easy to beat this team, regardless of the fact that they aren't the most perfect team. That would have to be India. But then, all it takes is for your weaknesses to suddenly spring up on the worst possible day.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that in World Cup finals, you can't hide your weaknesses for too long as well. Because the
Yeah,
pressure does get onto you, because you know this is the ultimate game, right? Whatever you say, okay, Australia have been 5 times champion. There are players who have won the T20 World Cup, players who have won the 50 over World Cup in 2015. But they know they're playing in front of 1.3 lakh Indians as well. The pressure is different in today's game in comparison to any other game. If you look in 2015, they played in front of a packed Melbourne ground, which was at their feet when Mitchell Stark held that ball against Brendan McCullum. So it's going to be totally the opposite today when Bumrah holds the ball against a David Warner or a Travis Head in the first over, because the entire crowd is going to be up on their feet, and the pressure that you will have to go out there and do a job, as Pat Cummins said, there's nothing better than silencing 1.3 lakhs in
yeah,
the stadium. But at the same time, it's not going to be that easy to silence them as well, isn't it?
Oh, but even that's the thing, right? If there's one team in the world which does not give two shits about a crowd is Australia. In the finals, you saw that they were I mean like they were not the crowd favorite. South Africa were. Every ball, every wicket,
But you saw
the
them really get
crowds
under pressure in
behind.
those occasions. When crowd got behind them, you could see them being extremely jittery in that final. If you
Yeah,
look,
yeah,
that's
absolutely. We saw that. But we also saw them still make it out, right? I
yeah,
mean,
they made it out
you
because
can
of
name,
obviously they had
yeah,
enough in the bank. But I'm just saying, as you mentioned yesterday, Australia was a
yeah,
team who choked. To be very
yeah,
honest,
they did.
they were the one in
They
the winning position.
absolutely did.
But
Yeah,
you also saw the shades of pressure getting to them when they were batting when the crowd was against them. So it was not going to
yeah,
be that easy, to be very honest. And it isn't going to be that easy today because I'm pretty sure
yeah.
Australia has never played a match of this magnitude. I know they played in Melbourne, Boxing Day, but this is going to be the decibel levels 3x of Melbourne.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that this is happening at home, the fact that we Indians, if there's one team we love beating as Indians, it is Australia. I mean, of course, there is the Pakistan rivalry as well, but that's historical rivalry.
Yeah, yeah.
This is just pretty much, pure and pure cricket rivalry. We love beating the Australians. And like, what are the biggest moments we Indians remember as cricket fans? Are those two series in Australia, India's fiery bowling in the Test series, India beating Australia in the quarterfinals of the World Cup, being the first
Yeah.
team ever to in a decade to beat Australia in knockouts. We remember these things, we treasure these things because it's Australia. We love beating them, and I think it's been the same for Australia as well in the recent past. Now, Australians for a while did not take us seriously because we weren't a force that we were. But I think in the past couple of decades, since 2007 onwards, we have been
I
a
think
threat to
round three
Australia.
onwards.
I would say 2003 onwards. Yeah, you're right. Actually, you're right to point that out because 2003 onwards, we've been a thorn in their sides, and this rivalry is really developed on pure
And in the
cricketing sides.
2001 series is where it all began for them when
Yeah,
Luxman and Dravid took that on. From
correct.
there onwards, it was always going to be Australia's last frontier to come and defeat India in India, or not just that. And then India went to Australia, gave them a run for their money, drew that series, World Cup finals, then obviously World Cup semi final, T20 World Cup semi final 2007, Cricket World Cup semi-final final in 2011, the Commonwealth Bank Series. A lot has happened in that meanwhile, and that Test match in Perth, the Monkey Gate. A lot has happened between these two nations over
Yeah,
the last 2 decades, and it's only fitting. I mean, these two teams have played some of the best cricket in the last 2 decades as well. The two most consistent teams. But when you talk about trophies, obviously Australia have got a little more trophies than what India has got, and India's in
a
the
little
hunt for
more.
it. A little more, yeah. Yeah, a few more than what India wants always. Three more World Cups and same amount of Champions Trophy. So yeah, three
I
more
mean, I
trophies.
am.
I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
four
I
more. I think
am.
World Test Championship as well. So yeah, four more
Yeah, I mean,
trophies.
the thing about Australian dribble is also that you know this as well, right? These guys have grown up in a hostile environment, and I don't mean to say that Australians are, hostile in nature, but even when they play club cricket and stuff like that, the cricket there is highly competitive. Like I remember one of the club cricketers having an interview and how he was saying that the sledging that happens in international cricket is a lot more tamer, a lot more polite, and the sledging that happens in club cricket and these domestic tournaments are a lot more aggressive, and there's a lot more boundaries crossed there. So these lads, they know how to face a hostile crowd. It's not the first time in their lifetime that they're facing a hostile crowd, and that's the reason why if there is a team that can defeat this Indian team is the Australian team, and that's the reason why all of us are nervous because these guys are made of tough metal. They are a team which knows how to make comebacks. They are a team which knows how to win from any position, and that's why India will relish this challenge as well. And both these teams have had some of the best matches, some of the best bilateral series in one-day cricket itself.
Absolutely. I mean, bilateral cricket or one day cricket or the test match of what we talk about. India Australia has been the iconic series of this decade.
Yeah.
By far the iconic rivalry of this decade. Ashes is definitely there, but then except for this Ashes, you saw a lot of one-sided Ashes in the last 1 decade as well. So that's one of the reasons why India Australia have become the marquee event, and that's the only reason why the Border Gavaskar series is also extended to a 5-match series. Now, it's all because of the hype
Mhm.
which has been around later next year or next November, December, we are going to Australia to play that iconic Border-Gavaskar series, which is going to be a 5 test match series. And Australia are in India right after this as well. So this rivalry has been engaged by public a lot more. It's consumed a lot more, which is also made sure, okay, which also made Cricket Australia and BCI to think about arranging more series of that magnitude. Okay, let's have an India Australia series every 3 months, every 6 months. Now, how often have you heard a team come to India 3 times in a year? Now, 4 times including World Cup. Now, that's very rare, right? And that's what Australia has been doing. And then they play the IPL, obviously. So the relation between two countries also have been very good in the last few years, which has really helped this team to come to India a lot more, for India to go to Australia a lot more. So I think this is an epitome of rivalry. Talking about which, I think we have to talk about how big players will step into this, right? So here there's some points by Teju saying that Gill, Iyer, Sky, Jaddu, Bumrah. But if you talk about Australian team, a Travis Head, a David Warner, a Steve Smith, all these are big match players. Let's also include a Glenn Maxwell in there. Let's Mitchell Marsh. These guys know what big occasion feels like. These guys know how to be fearless in big occasions.
Absolutely, and I think if you look at most of those players, we've already spoken about this, and I know this is also out there as part of the narrative, but these guys have won ICC tournaments, right? And it's just been 8 years. It's close to a decade, I know, but and a lot of these players were young players, but it's not like
But these
they don't
guys
know the
won a
process.
T20 World Cup couple of years ago as well. It's
And they
not
won
like
a T20 World Cup couple of years ago. I mean, just talking about one day World Cup, I know it's been 8 years, but even then, there are players in this team who were at the peak, who were not, who were young players back then, who are at the peak of their powers now. And being a young player and you win a World Cup, you know how that can shape you, right? I mean, look at the crop of Indian players that are there in this team right now. Them winning trophies at early in their career has really shaped them and their penchant for pressure. I mean, look at a Jadeja, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Ashwin. These lads have become champion cricketers and they were part of the 2011, 2013 Champions Trophy runs. So it can really change. I mean, 27 as well. You saw how that crop of 27, T20 World Cup winners for India turned out in 2011 and won the tournament. So when you do something, you feel like you can achieve something. The first time is always the hardest, but right after that, you just believe that you've been there, done that. You say, "I came, I saw, I conquered." That feeling is huge, and that feeling is with Australia more than it is with India. But don't discount the experiences of players like Ashwin, Virat, Rohit Sharma, because these guys have also done it, and players look up to these lads in the dressing room. Now I know Ashwin is not playing in the 11, but that doesn't mean that he is discounted and his experience is discounted. So there is experience in both the sides, and that's why they're so evenly matched, and that's why it's such a mouth-watering contest. I'll be frank. In many ways, I wish it was not my team in the finals, so I could really enjoy it to the fullest and not worry about the results. But it's also really nice that it's my team in the final because
I'm
that just
just
makes it
happy,
even
man.
more
Because I
high
was
stakes.
really sitting and regretting, oh, I wish my
Yeah.
team was in the final. So I'm just happy. You want to go through it, and that's what sporting events is all about, right? You
Absolutely,
want your team in
absolutely.
the finals. That's what you all dreamt about since last 4 years, since that run out in Manchester. You wanted this moment to come. You knew the World Cup was in India. So yeah, you always knew, Kohli doesn't have good numbers in Ahmedabad ODIs. He has played what, one ODI there? That's all. Played one ODI if I remember,
I
or
think that
two.
also he played during the pandemic time, yeah? Or what did he
No,
play
no,
after
he's
that?
played couple of ODIs. One against Pakistan in the World Cup,
Yeah,
and against West Indies way back. In the pandemic, he had a T20 series in Ahmedabad
against
where he was a
India.
man of the series, where he
Yeah.
scored some 300 odd runs against England. So I don't think that really matters. He's played what, couple of innings or two innings. But Rohit Sharma had a horrific record in Wankhede before that. So, I mean, it doesn't really
Which
matter,
is
to be honest.
surprising. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. The previous records doesn't really matter here. It's about how you go out there and play. I mean, all these records, yeah, against West Indies in the pandemic, correct. It was that one game against West Indies. Prasidh Krishna also picked up a lot of wickets. I remember that. So, yeah, that was it. Couple of ODIs, and we're talking about Virat Kohli at that time, and now it's two different Virat Kohlis, man. I mean, it's just
because
weird to say
Kohli,
that, but
yeah,
yeah, Virat Kohli wasn't getting any runs back then. I mean, he was trying,
yeah.
he wasn't able to score against anyone, anywhere, anywhere. So I think it's a different Virat Kohli, and
I mean, he
he'll
was
enjoy the
scoring at a
cricket.
rate of. He was playing. You would say that he did not play badly. I think he had an average of 35, which is what most players dream of in international cricket.
Yeah,
But it's not Kohli. Yeah. This is the. I think this is. I think if Kohli goes on to do well today, this could be his best year ever in international cricket,
yeah.
hands down.
I
I
mean,
mean,
obviously. If Kohli
Yeah,
does well, India does well, and to win a World Cup 800 odd runs, that's crazy, bro. I mean, this is close
absolutely.
to a one-day version of Kohli. I mean, you can say 2016 Virat Kohli IPL. Oh, wow, that's crazy, right? I mean, 973 odd runs. But if he does well, scores 800 runs and wins India the World Cup, that's close to anything, man. 11 matches, 800 odd runs. Let's be honest,
Yeah,
that's an insane record. If I given him 14 matches, he would have scored 1,000 runs in that case. So that's what we're
Virat
talking
Kohli,
about.
I mean, this guy is at an average of 101 in this World Cup table. He is, I mean, imagine your average is as such that you're guaranteed to score 100 statistically. That is just, that's inhumane. That's out of the world, you know. You're not supposed to be that good.
I mean, that pressure of that 50 hundreds, if there was any, is also now gone. Now he can play.
Yeah,
He can
yeah,
literally play. Now it's time for him to now go out there and pile runs on runs. I think that is gone. I think there was certainly pressure. Media was talking about it. Everyone was talking about it. Now for once and for all, that is off. Now Virat Kohli is going to really go out there and enjoy. The 50-100 mark is also breached and breached in
yeah.
some fashion. I mean, so we all expected it to come in World Cup, but what a magnitude, magnanimous feat for it to come in a World Cup semi-final, as we spoke about. But I also think like Mohammad Shami today, you spoke of Virat Kohli's bad record, if there was any, just pick out. But Mohammad Shami in Ahmedabad, and to left-handers especially, to the way in which he's balling around the wicket, he's going to give a tough time to those left-handers, isn't it? Because he knows these conditions more than anyone. I mean, in that team, Shubman, Shami, maybe you can bring in. I don't think a lot of players. Bumrah, yeah, Bumrah is a homegrown boy there, but then he hasn't
Yeah.
played a lot of cricket there, unfortunately. So, yeah, but Bumrah's last time he played against Pakistan, that you saw some beautiful bowling from him. So I don't think
Yeah.
any pitch in the world matters for Bumrah. You put him in a road in India, he'll still ball
So
well.
I
He's
think if
got
you put him on the moon with zero gravity, he'll still take wickets.
yeah, so that's what Bumrah can do. So I think Bumrah, Shami, and I think Siraj also bowled well against Pakistan in this very ground. I think he got a little bit of reverse as well towards the later stage. So I think it's going to come down to these three bowlers once again, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, they are the ones who set the momentum for us. And if India has been unchallenged in this World Cup, or at least if any challenge that has been raised against India has been quashed so easy, it's because of these lads. They just set the momentum up in the power play. With the new ball, they've been phenomenal. And India is not even in the daylight, right? Where a lot of these bowlers, opposition bowlers, have struggled. These guys have not given away runs. I mean, it's
Yeah,
been very difficult to ball in the daylight for most bowlers, but these guys have still restricted the opposition team for 40, 50 runs, which is really good in this era of cricket because teams have looked to dominate bowlers in the power play. They know that once the ball gets old, it's really difficult to score runs in Indian conditions. So if you can do that when the conditions are against you, that just shows the quality of bowling that India has had. And all India has to do is repeat what they have done in the last 10 games. And I think if these guys can just set that, especially if India is batting, I mean, bowling first, they can set that momentum. Because, even if they're not bowling first, right, at the start of that innings, the power play is so crucial because that's where you get that early momentum. You can still say that momentum does get reset a little bit once that first inning is over because you have a bit of a break and everyone goes back in, probably has a shower, a little bit of a break from cricket. You come out, use and the team who's had the momentum going in after the end of the first innings still has to maintain that momentum. And if you can do well in the power play, you can change games around. We saw that. I think in the South Africa game, we all expected if South Africa got those 3 wickets, if 2 to 3 wickets in the power play, things could have been different, by the end of the semi-final. But they couldn't, and that's the only reason why things did not change. And if you look at New Zealand as well, not losing a lot of wickets in the power play helped them a lot. Even they lost 2 wickets, but if they lost more, that would have been the end of the line for them there.
yeah,
So I think that's where these guys really come in handy.
I agree with you. I mean, I think at the same time, what I also feel is that one thing which India has done beautifully throughout this World Cup is the discipline, right? I think the first no ball they balled was in the last game against New Zealand. A lot of basics they did right, especially not bowling no balls, not giving away too much of extras. I think last game was where we let that away slightly off our clip, especially giving away that no ball, giving those wide fours. Also, India was extremely disciplined in what they did. I mean, these are very important factors when we talk about not giving away a no ball and not giving away too much of extras. And that has been
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we've had a lot of success in this World Cup as a bowling unit. If you compare it with any other bowling unit in this World Cup, they've all been, you know, they've all been criminal of what they've done in this World Cup. They've all given away too much of width, too much of loose balls, given away boundary balls at a rate, which can really hamper the momentum of a team. Now, if you want to set a tone, especially in the first innings, you'll have to ball well. You'll have to keep your discipline at your absolute best. You'll not have to give away anything. Now, not giving away anything means you are gonna ball to your strength. At the same time, make sure the opposition batter is also tested. Sandeepani, welcome on the show. How are you feeling this morning?
Yeah, I'm feeling nervous, honestly. I just came here to, I mean, just sum up the live. I thought I wouldn't be there today. But yeah, I feel, I mean, we reiterated whatever we spoke yesterday itself. I think India are the slight favorites setting into this game. But with these sort of knockout games, you can never, I mean, discount an Aussie. So five-time world champions versus two-time world champions. Hopefully, we'll get our third, and it looks like we should get our thirds if we can just hold our nerves.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not easy to get that third start. So, I want to ask you this question as well. Now, a lot of hopes of Indians rely around our main batters, right? Obviously, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma. But how important it is for the youngsters to step up. I mean, some of them have done beautifully, but to take the onus. I mean, they've all stepped up around the big players. But can they take up the onus today, if at all, if need be?
I think that is interesting because if you see the template of this Indian team, you just have that one anchor in the form of Virat Kohli. So Kohli would look to Kohli has done his job in 8 of the 10 games. In the game against Pakistan where he failed, you can say that there was no scoreboard pressure. So you can say that Kohli has done the job for Team India on 9 out of the 10 games where he has scored at least 50, or I mean there was no scoreboard pressure. Apart from the game against England where he got out early, he has really beautifully handled the job of an anchor's role. So I don't really think the other opening batters or the number 3, number 4, number 5, say a Shubman Gill or a Shreyas Iyer or a KL Rahul, hasn't yet been tested to play that anchor's role. Well, KL Rahul you can say in the game against Australia, but apart from that, you can't say really a Shreyas Iyer or a Shubman Gill being tested when they have lost 2 early wickets. So I think that is why Kohli has beautifully held the team together. But having said that, I really feel that the team should be ready. And the youngsters should be ready to step up when they need to. And even if they lose a Kohli early, and even if they lose 2 wickets early, I still feel they have it in them. The batters are in form. They have the maturity. I believe that they will understand the game awareness and they will look to first play out a certain overs, go at 3 runs, 4 runs, 5 runs, whatever they can get, and towards the end they would look to capitalize. And having said that, I think Rohit Sharma has been that important cog as well. I mean, now recently a lot of people are coming up and saying that yeah, Rohit Sharma is a very very good candidate for the man of the tournament. I mean, award because he has performed brilliantly. The starts that he has provided the team, along with the way in which he has led the team, I think has been spectacular, and I
Yeah.
think he would really look to carry the same into this game as well.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. But Janan, if you're batting first today, what could be an ideal total which India will have in their minds? And if you're chasing, what's an ideal total they'd want to chase as well?
I'll be frank, maybe like I genuinely can't put a number right now because we don't even know how the pitch is going to behave. I mean, we've not had a lot of games in Ahmedabad this World Cup to really state, and it's been so far apart from each other as well. These games, that's going to be tough to say. Now, early reports are saying it's going to be spin friendly, but then that's what they said about the New Zealand game as well, and we know how that turned out. So it's just going to be that kind of a game where you probably will have to you probably will be able to predict the score only after the first, I think, 10-15 overs, and for that, I mean, I generally don't want to put myself out there by stating a score and then really seeing that the pitch is behaving in a completely different way, because that's a very good
No, but I
possibility.
think I can put a generic score out there. I feel, yeah, I mean, Teju has said 348 is a good score indeed. But I feel whatever is generic for a finals, I think if India goes on to bat first and score anything in excess of 320, I think they'll be on the driver's seat and it will be their game to lose. And if they can restrict Australia to somewhere around or less than 270 mark, I think once again India should be in contention to chase it down. So I think 270 and less while bowling first and 320 or more while batting first should be the way to
So,
go.
yeah, Kapil asked which is the key wicket of Australia. I mean, for Australia to pick up or for us to pick up?
I
We'll
think
say
for
for
us
us
to
to
pick
pick
up,
up.
it has to be the wicket of Travis Head and David Warner early on. I think those two have been giving Australia decent enough starts. Mitchell Marsh has done well against India in bilateral tournaments, but I don't really see him as a huge threat taking the game away
Yeah.
right from ball one, because he struggles early on. And then if you bring in quality spinners, he finds it a bit difficult to rotate the strike as well. So I think the key batters who will look to take the game away from an Indian team if the bat first will be Travis Head and David Warner. And if you can get those 2 wickets early, I think the stage will be set.
Yeah. But you can, like the 2011 World Cup, we all wanted to bat first. Everybody had an opinion that India should bat first. Then India went on to lose the toss, right? And Sri Lanka batted first. At that time, a lot of people were like, oh, the game is half done. India will have to ball out of their skin to really. But then when Sri Lanka scored 270, I mean, India lost 2 early wickets. Everybody had their hopes done and dusted there. How do you see that kind of situation repeat again, Jared?
I mean, yeah, exactly my point. So that's the reason why I said, sometimes it's okay to lose the toss because this has been a World Cup where pitch has really been unpredictable and toss has really been not a factor. In fact, if anything, it's been a factor against teams. And we've, I mean, if you look at the toss win and win record, it has really not gone hand in hand. It's been a lot more that if you lose the toss, you might just win the match. And I think not a lot of teams have won the toss and won the match as well. Exhibit A being Temba Bavuma in the semi-final. Won the toss. Probably everyone expected that to be a good toss, but then she turned out to be the exact reason of their undoing. I mean, probably it could have been the other way around if Pat Cummins had elected the toss. Wanted to bat first, which he didn't, by the way. And Australia would have ended up at the same score, and who knows, South Africa would have chased that down. But having said that, that's the reason why we say, right, that probably a good thing for India today would be just lose the toss, because sometimes that helps psychologically as well. Just feel like you might just play a natural game a little bit more when you feel like you've lost the toss. Because sometimes when you win the toss, you feel like now your plans have to go right because everything is in your end. And it's not really an advantage. And this World Cup, it's not at all been an advantage.
I mean, if you look at this pitch report, like from what is seen in this World Cup, you can see the percentage of runs scored as well, the wickets percentage, power play strike rate, and everything, right? One thing I'll have to be very honest when it comes to two ends as well. I'd have to be very clear. If you look the way in which power play has gone in Ahmedabad Stadium, it's really gone good for a lot of teams. Even if you remember that New Zealand was an England game, New Zealand had a terrific power play, chasing a 280 odd score. And India was Pakistan game as well. India had a terrific power play. Even Pakistan got off to a decent start in the power play. I think power play is one of the best times in the Ahmedabad wicket to bat at.
Yeah, I mean, and both the teams have the ammunition to go after the bowlers. I mean, Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill, the way they have played in this tournament, the template that they have showed in the last few games as well, they would look to take on the likes of Mitchell Stark and probably give a little bit of respect to Josh Hazelwood. But then again, you wouldn't want a Hazelwood to settle down, because Hazelwood becomes really, really dangerous if you give him those 2-3 overs where he can feel that he is bowling well, he's not conceding too many runs. That is where he becomes extremely dangerous. So I think the key will be to take the bowlers on, and I think the Indian team is going to do that. Similar is the case with Australia as well. I think Travis Head and David Warner. You saw in the last game that Jasprit Bumrah was earning in line early on, at least early on in his spell. So I think if he gives 2 or 3 freebies to a David Warner or a Travis Head, they can really get going. And I think they are going to really, really target Mohammad Siraj. Mohammad Siraj
Absolutely.
and I think probably Ravindra Jadeja are the two players that they will be looking to target.
But I think Ravindra Jadeja will be very handy if they look to target him. And
Yeah,
if you look at
I mean,
Ahmedabad ground,
I don't know whether it is going to be a good tactic or not, but I mean, they are looking to no, but probably if the openers are out early, then I think they can even go after a Kuldeep Yadav, because all right-handers, even though they don't have the best of records against a Kuldeep Yadav, but I don't feel that
I think it's
Australia
going
can
to be
afford.
harder to go against a Kuldeep Yadav because they've got bigger square boundaries in Ahmedabad.
Yeah,
And
you
it's not
have bigger
that easy
square
to hit a
boundaries,
Kuldeep
but
down the ground.
yeah, but I really think that Australia cannot afford to play out 20 overs of spin. I think Jadeja and Kuldeep Yadav are going to hold the key with the ball as well, because if you look to go after them, they are going to give you wickets, and Australia cannot afford to play those 20 overs, say at a rate of 3.5 or 4, which both Jadeja and Kuldeep Yadav will be really happy to
But if
give
you look,
away.
even a lot of players, Mitchell Marsh struggles heavily against spin. We've seen that time and time again. Even as Travis
Yeah,
said, but we don't have an off spinner, but whenever the ball goes away from him, he's very unsure. Similarly with David Warner as well. I mean, they're very comfortable against ballers who ball into them, but ballers who ball away from them, they've really struggled. In the last game also, you saw the moment spin was introduced, there's like a halt, there's like a break on this team. I think it's gonna come down to how India's spin performs in Australia, isn't it, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about this a lot of times. This year in itself, Australia has struggled against spin for a long time. They struggled against the likes of Keshav Maharaj in that South Africa series just before the World Cup. Then they played India. They struggled against Kuldeep and Jadeja again. This World Cup as well, we saw Keshav Maharaj, Aiden Markram really being a thorn in their in their side in that semi-final. The Afghanistan match as well, you saw barring Glenn Maxwell, the team struggling against spin. So that has been an issue for this Australian team, and it continues to be an issue. I think they also have become very nervous. They've realized that this is an issue in their game, and that has put a lot more pressure on them to do well against spinners. And that's where it's going to be interesting to see the Australia's approach. I think that's one more reason, April, why they've gone so uber aggressive in the power play, because they realize once the spin comes in, it's been tough for them. It's been tough for the middle order, so they want to make sure that that disadvantage is covered by the time the bridge comes, and the power play helps them cover that disadvantage, I would say.
The
And I
question
feel
is,
that is going to be one of the more reasons why Australia are going to look to take the attack on the spinners, because you cannot let a Kuldeep Yadav and a Jadeja really settle down and bowl their way for
Yeah.
in the middle overs.
it is also going to be interesting to see what side of the ground do they target. I think the straighter boundaries are shorter in Ahmedabad in comparison to square boundaries. So I think if you have target Jadeja, it's always good to go straight. But if you target Kuldeep, it's hard to go straight. So I think they will target a Jadeja, as you mentioned, than a Kuldeep Yadav. So they might look to play Kuldeep out, because whenever you try to hit Kuldeep, there's also an opportunity to give him wickets. Jadeja, if the ball doesn't do a lot, can become an easy target. And we've seen that. There's no disrespect to Jadeja as a bowler, but it's something which we've seen time and time again. Even the last game against New Zealand, though he bowled very well,
Yeah.
but I think it's easier to go down the ground against him. I think someone like
Yeah, I think
Mitch Marsh,
yeah.
yeah,
It's also because Jadeja is a classical left arm spinner. He doesn't have the ball that comes into the right hander, that variation that a Kuldeep Yadav has. So that kind of puts the batters at ease compared to he does have the arm ball, which is a really good delivery he balls, but and he has a natural variation of that ball not turning. But compared to Kuldeep Yadav, where he can actively bring the ball back into a ball away from a right hander, you would have to say that it's a lot more easier to play Ravinder Jadeja, but that's also where you fall, right? That's also what he wants you to believe, that it's easy to go after him. Because if you look at Jadeja and his wickets, it's always been that one place where he puts your mind at ease by bowling those consistent lines, and then you think you have a read on him, and then he sneaks that one natural variation in, or that one arm ball in, and you're trapped right in front of the stump. So it's not an easy job. And if it is a spin friendly track, if the ball turns, that's when Jadeja is a big threat, because you never know which one turns and which one doesn't. And that's been an issue for Australia every single time they faced Jadeja.
And also
absolutely.
players like Mitchell Marsh and say a Maxwell will heavily rely on their power hitting prowess to get after the
Mhm.
spinners. The I mean Maxwell will use sweeps and reverse sweeps. Mitchell Marsh will look to play them down the ground, and that is where you need. I mean, reading the delivery is very important, and I feel that both of them are really bad players. I mean, Maxwell is a good player of spin, but early on in his innings, he is really skeptical, and he
Yeah.
does not have a clue as to what way the ball is going. He'll just swing, and if he connects, it's well and good. If it does not, he'll go back to the pavilion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's about from us now. I mean, so finally, do you guys think India are getting the third star tonight?
I hope so. I genuinely do.
I
I think
genuinely
the
don't
next
know
1
what the
week.
team is going to do if they win the toss. I really don't know whether batting is the best option or fielding is the best option.
That
So
doesn't
I'm
I
matter.
still
think these are the
Is
unsure.
India
moments where
getting the
when
third
you
star or not? That's the
I
question.
think it. I think they
I'll be
should. I
frank.
think they should.
I don't know if they're getting it or not, but I'll tell you one thing: if they get or not depends on how good my next 1 week goes.
No, but
I
I
think our
also
next
feel
4 years
even
years
if
go. Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly. But even if they don't get it, but I still feel the performances that they have put up in this World Cup, I think it's praiseworthy. Yes,
Yeah.
they are expected to win clutch games. Yes, they are expected to win ICC trophies, and there will be a lot of disappointment. But I still feel that a hate is something that we can avoid, and Rohit Sharma has been one of the best captains in this tournament. We have to give it to him.
That's it. Our final preview of the World Cup ends right here. So hopefully when we come back, we have the same joy and ecstasy.
Are we
that we
coming
would
back if it is still a 2-star?
Huh?
Of course, we have to. It's
I
a
said
job.
hopefully, right?
I said,
And
are we still
hopefully.
coming back if we have only 2 stars?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we're supposed to do. So
I think if we come back, we'll share the frustration of every
Sunny will
fan.
sit
We'll
here
get
and be
all
like, "Woohoo! I'm an Aussie tonight, lads."
No, no, I'll not be able to come, I guess. But I mean,
Sanjeevani Max.
even if we get a 3-star, I would rather prefer going out and mixing in with the crowd a bit and then come back and do the live.
Yeah, that you can do. There's no harm in that.
Yeah.
I think the match will be over by 6-7 itself. My prediction. We'll be back. Back end.
That is bizarre,
I
but
don't know.
okay.
I think that would be such a downer if that happens, unless India is winning, because this is going to be a. This has all the writings of being a World Cup classic.
Better than 2019?
Could be, could be, but I don't want it to
Yeah,
be.
and I think we
I
have
would like to
some
live a
very
little longer. I would like to
I
live
mean,
a
I
little
can, I
longer.
can
I
just
don't want to be that
imagine what the
close.
fans of respective teams went through in 2019. I didn't want to.
I don't want to either. I just want to sleep peacefully knowing India won the match easily.
India
I
won the
would
World Cup
be
by the
really
barest
happy.
of margins.
Yeah.
That's what you want to
Not
listen.
barest. Not barest. I don't want a close game. I want a one-sided game.
तो
Yeah.
तो 7 बजे आ सकते हैं ना तो क्या प्रॉब्लम है लोगों को क्या मैं तो बड़ी ठीक है
हाँ, मैं
चलो
आ सकता हूँ 7
I
बजे,
hope
but
the
that
Asia
is
Cup
very, very
final repeats.
improbable.
We'll be here by 5 o'clock rather. The Asia Cup final was the best final in the history of
Bye
it.
bye, guys.
Loved it every bit.
There
Right.
there
Shout
weren't
out to
many bits
Daniel
to love.
Alexander.